What's up, everyone? Welcome to the show. Today we are going deeper into this topic of motivation, goals, and mindset. We're going to be talking about why your thoughts and psychology play a big role in achieving your goals. This is the first step of our health hierarchy of needs and critical for you to get right.
Good morning, champions. My name is Yanni Burmeister. Across the table from me is my brother Rad Burmeister. Behind the mic is none other than Richard Lellies, the voice of God. Together we are Unity Gym and the Unify Movement System, where we teach driven people how to become athletes. Now, we are going deep this week into mindset and how to ignite your motivation. Yesterday we didn't have a show, but the day before yesterday we kicked this off with framing, why there's a hierarchy of health and why it's important to achieve a high level of motivation. First, we call it igniting your motivation or creating a burning desire, discovering your burning desire, and then building your goals and strategy around that burning desire. That is the first step in our health hierarchy at Unity Gym. Today we're going to go deeper and we're going to talk about how this affects you and why it's important. Now, before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out to everyone listening on the podcast. The podcast is absolutely going gangbusters and we're getting more and more people subscribe. I want to urge you guys on the podcast and also those of you watching the replay that we upload onto our YouTube channel, get yourself over to the UMS Movement Mastermind so you can do what Joseph and Jesus are doing right now, which is to say hello, give us a shout out, we'll give you a shout out back, and you guys can ask us questions. Like the question of the day, which is, what are your goals and why do you want to achieve them? We want to go deep and identify potential roadblocks, potential mechanisms of sabotage that we all go through due to psychology, mainly our thoughts. And this is a very, very near and dear topic to me. It's something that I've gone very deep in because those of you who have followed us for a while know that I've had battles throughout my life with depression and anxiety. And if I didn't really go deep in psychology, we would never be where we are here today. Rad and Richard just would have got sick of dealing with me and probably shut the business down. So it's a very important thing. And off the back of it, it's now one of my strongest assets. And I truly believe this. You can turn these little nuances and attributes of yours into really powerful tools for success, and it certainly has been with me because I went deep into leveling up, and I'm sure we'd all agree that that has been quite fortunate for our business and what we do here. So let's do it. Rad, how you doing?
Yeah, really good. It's it's a good topic. It's something that that we've just put an insane amount of work into learning about, and something that I think very few people challenge themselves on this. I mean, we started challenging ourselves on this stuff, 16 or 17 years ago or something, when we first became personal trainers, and we started to work with people that were far more successful than we were and that were really, really ahead of the game with us in their business development usually, and this idea of understanding motivation, understanding how important your goals are, and really mapping out the future that you want for us. And before we learnt anything like this, and I think before a lot of people learn this stuff, I think people think that life happens to them, whereas people that understand this stuff know that life happens for them.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's a really, really different thing they're two very, very different things to understand. The life happens to me is the victim mentality of my circumstances are out of my control and all this stuff's just happening to me. But life happens for me is the proactive person, the action taker's mentality, which is my life happens for me based on the things I choose to do. And this idea of your thoughts and psychology, they just play such a big role because, really, I mean, I remember for us, for me at least anyway, the first introduction to this for me was when you said, you should watch this movie, The Secret. And I watched The Secret years ago, and I think The Secret had its place. I've gone well beyond it, and I do think it's a bunch of, I do think it has its place to ignite a spark within people, but the problem is it goes too far with this idea of positive thinking, and it definitely instilled in me and the people around me this idea that you just need to think positive and that's all you need to do.
Yep.
But you do definitely need to start by thinking positive. Like, that's the first step.
Yep.
You have to believe that you can have more, and you have to believe that the only reason why you don't have it is because you haven't created it.
Yeah. Yeah, there is so much to unpack on this topic, and it's kind of like, where do you get started? Because one of the biggest and most important concepts is to really adopt the notion that you need to take extreme ownership of everything, and so this positive thinking coupled with taking extreme ownership is one of the things that fuels the fire. Now, I love what Joseph said here. My goal were initially aesthetic. Now that I'm finding more strength and getting into SOM podcast, Sound of Movement podcast, I'm gearing more towards overall strength, and the flexibility bit sounds like a plus. And we're going to go deeper into that tomorrow, because getting a burning desire and directing that burning desire in the right direction is really, really powerful. And I was one of those people that for a decade, all I trained for was aesthetics. I had no real, despite the fact that I had a sporting background in soccer, rugby league and boxing, and really valued high performance, I didn't really understand that if you go really deep into aesthetics, it often comes as a trade-off to how your body performs and feels, because you stop at nothing to make it look a certain way, and that really can require beating yourself down to force that adaptation of muscle growth. And you do it once it becomes your burning desire, you do it at all costs. That's what a burning desire is all about. And if the burning desire is directed in the wrong way, it can be quite detrimental to your health,
Yeah.
And we will talk about that more tomorrow. But today, the most important part about this discussion is to, convince people to adopt the mentality that their thoughts are heavily are very much involved in their outcomes. They are what is leading you down a certain path. They are what leads you to take certain action in your life, and they are 100% responsible for the outcomes you're achieving in your life. And that can be quite a deflating concept to grasp until you understand that your psychology, your brain, the way it functions, it's very much like a computer. It can be updated, and it should be updated regularly. Your thoughts can actually change. They're very much dictated, and we all think there's freedom of speech and freedom of thought. And the deeper I went into psychology, the more I learned that that's total bullshit. We don't choose our thoughts at all. Our thoughts are implanted into our brain and our consciousness based on our past experiences. You think there's freedom of thought, freedom of speech, all of this stuff, but we're constantly being programmed by the outside world. And it's very much governed by our upbringing, our parents, our school, our religion, and advertising. Like, advertising is dictating our thoughts. What we see on television, we hear on these podcasts, this is all playing a role in how we think. And then those thoughts are playing a major role in how we behave, and those behaviors play a major role in the outcomes we experience in our life, And so it becomes, once you start to become enlightened to this concept, it becomes that there is a need, there is an obligation on your behalf to control what's coming into your life, the information, because it's playing a major role. And this goes back to the extreme ownership concept. If you're not getting the outcome in your life that you want, or that you desire, or that you want something different, then often you've got to go right upstream and figure out, okay, so what's making me think the way I think? What are the reasons for the dogmas that I have attached myself to? And how can I change that, so that downstream the results change, And it's a very powerful thing to go through this process, because we all watch certain things and listen to certain things, and there was a couple of great examples of this recently. The Boys episode, the second last Boys episode, I think it was, where they followed this guy who was being brainwashed.
Yeah.
You know, and then also this new documentary about social media. What's it called? On Netflix,
Social Dilemma.
The Social Dilemma. These are great examples of the level of programming that we are receiving.
Yeah, they really are. Yep.
And you know, trust me when I say this, it is happening on a level that you would be disgusted with if you really knew what was going on. You know, I'm not just talking about how you were schooled as a child.
Look, we're in a war. We're in a constant battle, a war to protect our freedom and our sanity and our success from everything that you've just described. And I hate to say this, but if you're not aware of this and if you're not proactively trying to fight this, then you're losing the war.
You're losing the battle. Yeah.
You're losing the battle. Terrible. Not only are you've lost it, and you need to regain some control, because only by being aware of it and becoming aware of what's going on with the things that you watch, and then proactively going, like I remember when I went through this, and I would catch myself sitting down on the couch and watching Netflix again. And don't get me wrong, I love watching movies and I love watching Netflix, but man, I reckon I watch about a 10th or a 20th of what I used to before I started to learn this stuff. And I'd catch myself sitting down to binge something, and I would start to get this sick feeling in my stomach when I realized that I was doing exactly right now what I'd been trying to program myself not to do. And I started thinking, could I be reading a book right now? Or could I be listening to a podcast now? Or could I be watching a TED Talk right now? Or could I even just be meditating right now? And so I very carefully choose the times now that I do that stuff, and I enjoy it when I do it, but I definitely don't just default to watching shit. And you and me both, we both use social media for business, but we both do it sometimes where one of us will go, fuck, oh man, that Facebook rabbit hole, man, you just pull yourself out of it. And we pull ourselves out of it usually after about 5 minutes, but people do it for hours, man, hours. I want to say really quick, I'm about to rock the boat here a little bit, because what I want to do is, the topic of today's show, why your thoughts and psychology play a big role in achieving your goals. And Michael Hunter, I'm going to have a little chat to you, brother, about what you've just written here for your goal. I would like to get you to consider the possibility that the goal that you've listed is said, I want less of this. So my goal is to have less of this, meaning my goal is to focus on what I don't want and want less of it. Now, I did say before that you have to take what you learn in The Secret by a grain of salt, but this is a part of it that I really, really agree with. What you focus on, you get more of. Whether you want less of it or want more of it, if you focus on it, you get more of it. To a degree. This is
that's one of the first sort of things that you're taught, and then beyond that, what goes beyond thought is speech.
Yeah,
speech solidifies a thought.
Yeah, that's right.
And so one of the things I was taught by one of my greatest mentors, who I absolutely still adore and follow, said, it's one thing to think something that initiates the process, but what solidifies the process is to speak it, to say it to yourself. Once you say
it out there, you really put it out there, and that's why writing goals down is a really powerful thing. A lot of the most successful people will say a goal that's in your head is nothing more than a thought or a wish, and a wish is nothing. No successful people wish for anything. But when you write it down on paper, you solidify it. You look at it and you go, whoa. So let me just finish what I want to say specifically to Michael. What I would love to see you do, brother, is to reframe what you've written there, to reframe saying my goal is to stop injuring myself so I can make more consistent progress, and rather turn that around to saying, I want to have a strong and robust body that is capable of doing this, or something like that. That becomes a macro goal, and then you break that down into micro goals by saying, let's say right now you can barely do, a 30 kilo or 60 pound bench press. you'd say, I want to be able to do a 100-pound bench press for 5 reps and whatever. And you know that when you achieve that very tangible goal, you know your body is going to become stronger and more robust. But saying, I want to stop injuring myself so I can make more consistent progress, there's 2 things that I don't like about that goal. And this is exactly what we're talking about with our thoughts and psychology. Number 1 is it's programming you to see yourself as an injured person. And number 2 is it isn't a tangible goal. There isn't something that you can say, like when you say I want to have more money in the bank, that's not tangible. To say I want to have $100 in the bank, it's tangible. You can measure how close you are getting to having that. But to say I want more money in the bank, more than what?
Yeah.
You might have 50 cents in the bank, you get to 60 cents, so you got more if you hit your goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And look, that's one of the things that you start to become like when I went through this process over a decade ago, it became really, really overwhelming because I was becoming more and more aware of the way I spoke to people and the way I carried my baggage around through conversation. The first example was that I used to have a really compromised back after having a horse riding injury as a child that really stuck with me throughout my whole youth and adolescence. To the point where I really created an injury identity for myself. I was the guy with a compromised spine, and that's almost how I introduced myself. It was my story, It was, the more you tell it, it becomes this ingrained part of your program. And it's like every cell in your body adopts it and just goes, okay, yep, we're injured, we're compromised, and we can't do certain things. And that's the way it goes. And when I met people who were really enlightened to these concepts, and they were business people, and that's what had the biggest impact for me. That my big goal for the last couple of decades was to become financially free and really be able to support my family, so I started hanging around with people who were really financially successful, and I noticed a correlation between all of them, the way they speak, the way they think, everything. And this is where I was introduced for the very first time. It was one of my mentors many years ago, Paul Cunningham, who sent me off to my first sort of, I guess, it's not spiritual because it was a wealth creation seminar, but this is what they were talking about. They were talking about all this sort of stuff, and it wasn't as far out there as the secret concepts, but they were starting with the psychology around how you attract money.
It's all about those thought process and how you
that's
view
right.
wealth.
And I was really overwhelmed at the time. And then the more I hung out with people who were very, very successful in business and in health and in wealth creation, I started to really get pulled up a lot on the way I spoke to myself and the way I spoke about myself and the way I framed my goals like Michael. And it was really overwhelming. It was really like, at first you reject the notion because you're like, how the hell does it possibly affect my outcome?
And
if
it
I
completely
say it
challenges
like that,
your ego. It totally rips you down, and your ego just goes, well, hang on a minute, that's bullshit, it's not my fault, and this happened to me. I remember, for those of you listening, Yanni and I have done more workshops and seminars over the past 2 decades of being personal trainers than I can remember. We've done so many, and they've become better and better quality as time goes on, because as you become more experienced and as you get introduced to more really successful people that have a lot to teach you, you become better at picking the people that have got good lessons to choose for you. It's just the natural evolution of being a coach, I guess, if you're switched on and you do it. So I can't remember who did this, but I remember there was a workshop that we went to, and I can't remember who it was, but either you or me, when they asked us, we've got to do this or we've got to do that, our response was, I can't do that, I've got a bad back or whatever. And I remember they just looked at us and smiled and went, really? Is that who you are? Are you the guy with the bad back? You can't, you're a trainer, you're a fit dude. Are you the dude with the bad back? You can't do anything. I can't remember who it was. Do you remember this?
No.
You don't remember it? I remember it happened. We were in a room of trainers and of people, and we both just, whoever it was that it was said it to, we just went, oh, well, No, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you should introduce yourself as something different then.
Yeah, 100%.
Really funny
Look, I
experience,
got pulled up a lot, and it was really tough initially, and then I started to become really aware of it. And you, of course, I still pull myself up all the time, and I pull you guys up all the time and say, "How we had to talk about this yesterday. Reframe what you're saying," because it has so much power. Your words have so much power. It's not even funny. And to go back to what we're talking about today, your thoughts are where it all starts. And so, one of the first things that I like to deal with and address with people when they're not achieving the results that they want, or if they come in and we encourage people to create big, hairy, audacious goals that are right out there, and then the very first thing you've got to do is align your thought pattern with what you want to achieve. The very first step is to create a burning desire. And it's not I want to lose 10 kilos. It's like, why the hell do you want to lose 10 kilos? And you got to dig deep. We do this process in our 28-day intensive here at Unity Gym where we do the 5 whys exercise. Why do you want to lose 10 kilos? Okay, because I'd feel more confident and healthy if I lost 10. Okay, why do you want to be more confident and healthy? Well, because I'm not a very good role model to my children. Okay, why do you want to be a better role model? You do that 5 times until the point where it gets usually down to something deeply psychologically aligned with human herd mentality. It's about how you appear and present with social statures, how you are going to affect the people that you care about. You got to go deep. The 10 kilo goal is not going to be enough to keep you going for a long period of time. But once you really, really drill down on it, and for Rad, Richard, and myself, it's very much aligned with how we can affect other people's lives, how we can motivate, how we can inspire, what the legacy is that we're going to leave, And once you get to that, it starts to become a burning desire. It starts to become something that is so important to you that no rainy, cold winter's morning is going to prevent you from going to the gym, or no sports car is going to prevent you from hitting your investment goals for that year. For me, it's like there's nothing that gets in the way of me achieving my goals now, and that is the very, very first step. But then the second step is that you need to start to think, okay, how am I presenting? How am I showing up every day? And what am I saying to myself that may steer me in a different direction? That may, am I doubting myself? Am I confident? Am I thinking the right way? And if you're not, then you've got to get busy changing the way you think. And there are tools, there are processes that you can use, just like your smartphone. And I always say this, whenever I'm talking to a group of people about these topics, I always say, when people challenge this notion, I say, how often do you update the software on your devices, your smartphone, your computer, things like that? All of those devices are designed based on the way the human brain processes information. They are a very dulled down version of the human brain. The human brain is the most powerful supercomputer, almost a quantum computer, and we struggle with the thought of how all this works, and we struggle with the notion that our brains can be updated, our thought processes, the software we run on, which make up the dogmas and the stories that we tell ourselves, which is why we behave certain ways. We struggle with that notion that can be updated and changed. Come on, seriously? Of course it can, How do you think people turn their lives around and go from morbidly obese to running triathlons? And look at David Goggins' story. That guy is incredible. That book, if you're interested, read that his book, Can't Hurt Me. This guy went from being a morbidly obese human to being one of the most competitive ultra marathon runners on the planet.
And Navy SEAL.
And he, completely reprogrammed himself. Every cell in his body reprogrammed. You can do it. It's absolutely possible, but it takes intent. It takes conscious behavior. It takes action. You can't just cruise through life thinking that it's going to change for you, and you certainly can't sit in a room like they insinuated in The Secret and just think positive thoughts and think that that's going to play out. You got to create processes around all of this, you know. But the very first step is to acknowledge just how powerful your thoughts are and how powerful your words are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, look, guys, I hope you've gotten something out of this, because today we're going to, tomorrow we're going to be going deeper into this and talking about real goals and, turning your goals into a burning desire and into a strategy.
Into a strategy, yeah. Chris, just very quickly, let's go through some of the comments and discussion, because we've got some great stuff here. I love that so many of you are liking this topic, because it's so important. This is where it all starts. You know, if you don't have your psychology in check and your mindset, you got Buckley's chance of achieving your goals. You know, like there is so many ways that you can sabotage your success with the external influences of life and the way things change. You know, investors that I talk about, that I follow, always talk about the natural vicissitudes of life, the unexpected circumstances that are destined to occur, that you cannot change, you can't control. You know, if you're not really powerfully thinking in alignment with where you want to go in life, there is so many factors that can derail your success and your progress. Mm-hmm. And it's just it's really unfortunate that not more people are open to these concepts and are actively working to change them, because a good program, a good exercise program, should have a strategy for mindset and psychology. And if we bundle all that into motivation, it should have a strategy for movement, for exercise, and it should have a strategy for nutrition. Mm-hmm. And if you leave any of those three out, I seriously think you're going to find it challenging to succeed, you know.
I want to say, Jesus, you've said, my goal is to eventually master body weight mastery like a V-sit, middle splits and planche. That is awesome, because it is very much in alignment with my goals. But then you've said, I want to achieve them because they look so cool to do and is a big motivator to work towards rather than aesthetics. Very cool as well, but you haven't gone deep enough there, brother. See, what happens is when you do this exercise that Yanni's talking about, where you say, why? You say, why do I want to look cool? And that's a hard question to answer. For me, this was a really hard process to go through. But you think, why do I want to look cool? Because it matters to me what other people think of me. Why does it matter to me what other people think of me? And only you can answer that. But you're meant to keep going until you get to a point. Like you're on the right track there. But talking about this exercise of asking yourself why does that matter? You haven't really gotten down to the really core version. And when you get deep enough, it brings up a lot of emotion. You know, I can definitely say that my goals are very much aligned with what your goals are, and I've gone very, very deep on this. And at the grassroots level, yeah, you're really looking at, why does something like that, like looking cool, why does that matter to you? Why do you care about looking cool? And for me, it was a really hard exercise to go through, because you have to. For me, I had to battle this. This perception that wanting to look cool is a real, wank of a thing to want to do, like you're just being a tosser and Well,
here's the thing. I believe, and we talk about this a lot, there's nothing wrong with finding an avenue to demonstrate your strength, in your skill. In fact, I believe it's an important part of human psychology. So showing off is one way of doing that. Competing is a way of doing that. Competing in a sport, CrossFit. This is why I love CrossFit, because it gives people who are passionate about strength and fitness a chance to demonstrate their skill. Calisthenics, another reason why I love calisthenics. It gives people a reason to demonstrate their skill, a way to demonstrate their skill, but it's only one aspect of the puzzle, and if that is your only motivator, as soon as you age a little bit and you've got a little bit less testosterone and things like that, it really that drops that driver. I want to talk quickly about Cheryl Park's goals here and her comment, because there's some really good little gold nuggets we can give value for the end of this show. Fantastic that you're a martial artist and that you're passionate about martial arts. My brother and I, both Rad and I, grew up extremely passionate about martial arts, and Rad achieved quite a high level with his martial arts. I diverted into boxing, so I completely understand the drive and the passion. But the end of it here, I'm really interested in. It says here, so much to learn, but so worth it, I believe. And then she says in brackets, by the way, I threw out my back and am laid up at the moment. Now, this is an example of what we talk about when Phil's on the show, our physiotherapist. The language that you use here, I threw out my back, is something that has a lot of opportunity for growth. What you're experiencing here is a spasm in your back, and you know, I would say I'm not a doctor or a physio, so you need to go and get it diagnosed. But in most cases, we do something that exceeds our load capacity, and we experience a spasm, and the spasm is happening there to slow us down and prevent us from doing something that could potentially cause us a little bit of harm. There is no way that you can throw out your back. I'm visualizing someone coming and grabbing your back and ripping it off and throwing it in the garbage. You know, you can't do that. And so the language is very important here, because what you're doing there, we're saying I threw out my back, is very, very powerful language. It's very much like I've done something absolutely disastrous. It's the same as when someone comes and says, I slipped a disc in my back. You know, I saw a really great comic from a physio that I follow online, with literally a person slipping on a disc that was on the ground, and he's like, this is the only way you can slip a disc. You know, if someone removed one from your spine, put it on the ground, and you slipped on it, you can't slip a disc. You know, I don't know where the saying came from. You can have a disc bulge where the surface of the disc, the outer layer, delaminates and splits, and you get some gel bulging out, which can sort of hit a nerve. But you don't slip a disc. You damage a disc, or you know. So this is a good example of language and the way we think and the way we frame things, you know, because when you start to say, I have a muscle spasm in my back, how much better does that sound than I threw out my back? You know, a muscle spasm is something the body can deal with. And trust me when I say this, when you talk, when you speak, your body responds. You know, and if you're saying I've thrown out my back and I'm laid up and there's nothing I can do, I'm not for a moment suggesting, Cheryl, that you're not experiencing pain. Lower back pain is no joke, or back pain to any degree is no joke. I've come from a point where I spent many days in the fetal position on the ground in acute back pain. But the way you speak about it is absolutely critical, because when you say to your body that I've thrown my back out and I'm laid up, that is going to make that problem a lot worse, because pain, remember, all pain is a symptom of the brain. Your back doesn't feel pain. Your back sends a signal to your brain, and your brain determines that that signal is not so good, and we are going to fire off a pain mechanism, a pain sensation that you experience, but it's all experienced in the brain. As much as we'd like to say that you've got pain receptors in your lower back, it's total bullshit. It's not true. So if you can speak in a different language, you can actually turn that pain down, and it's really, really quite a powerful concept to understand. But this is fact. This is not me making this up. So reframe that. You've got a spasm in your back, and that spasm is something that you can deal with. You've got this. Mm-hmm. All right, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Don't miss out on tomorrow's show. It's going to be a really good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And quickly, just for anyone who's still listening, we're dropping a new program tomorrow. Big deal. We don't do it very often. It is a second phase of the Flexibility Masterclass. It's going to be epic. Mm-hmm. Get ready.
See you guys.